Well, I hope you enjoyed yesterday's video on covenant from the Bible Project. We're going to be including these now and again as we go through as they relate to the books or the themes that we're going to be talking about. And yesterday's video on covenant is really important because in chapter 15, God establishes a covenant with Abram. Again, I just want to recommend any of the Bible Project resources or videos. Feel free to check those out. Now, a covenant, as you would have heard yesterday, is a partnership agreement, a binding one. And here in Genesis 15, we see God doing something amazing in his affirming, making a covenant with Abram. To this point, God has made promises, descendants, a whole land that they're going to occupy. There's going to be one of the descendants who will bless all the nations. But there's a problem. Abram's old, doesn't even have one child as an heir to that promise. And so God reiterates the promise again here and then makes a key statement, not God, that is, the text, that Paul will pick up on in his letter to the Romans and the Galatians in explaining how we become right with God. And it's just the simple line that in the text of Genesis, we might just skip over, but it's key. Abram believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. Abram trusted, put his allegiance, participated in what God was doing, and that was credited to him as right standing. The word belief or faith, again, it's not just trust, it's not just kind of an intellectual assent. It's an allegiance where we are putting our lives, we are participating, we're giving ourselves to what God has said. Abram, he obeys God's instructions, and which seems strange to us. Take some animals, cut them in half, make a kind of a walkway in between. So, half of one animal on one side, half on another side of this path. Now, it's strange to us, but this would have been familiar to Abram. In his day, this is literally called a cutting of a covenant ceremony. It's kind of how it was done. The idea was when two people were making a covenant, often a business arrangement, or often also where a sovereign, a king, a conqueror, would require someone that they had conquered or a vassal to enter into covenant. And the lesser would walk through. The idea being, if you break faith, if you break the covenant, you break your agreement, what you're supposed to do, it's going to be to you, or may it be to you, like it is to these animals. In other words, you break your promise to me, you're going to get cut in half. See, Abram putting these animals in place, nothing's unusual from the ancient worldview. What's shocking is who goes through the path, who goes between the animals. It's God. God appears in the form of a smoking censer, think like a fire pot, or if you've gone to kind of maybe a Greek Orthodox or the traditions who have the priests who have the smoking incense, that kind of idea. And God goes through. He says, I'm making the commitment to you. This is how serious I am. I'm making this promise to you in the clearest way that Abram could possibly understand God's commitment to him. At the end of the chapter, I just make reference to this because, again, it will play out in later books as we go through the narrative of the Old Testament. God tells Abram that your descendants are going to go away from this land for about 400 years, and they're going to be slaves. But they're going to come out wealthy, the wealth of their oppressors, because, and all this is going to happen because the sin of the people of the land God had promised had not run its course yet. In other words, there was still some hope, but they were on a course where at some point it would be too much. And we're going to come back to these themes as we go through. But thought for the day, let me go back to God going through those animals. It's a picture of God's commitment to you. God's promise, God's assurance, God's guarantee, he will fulfill his word to you based on his character, not our performance. He has made a covenant through Jesus with us. Our response is to be like Abram in verse 6, to trust, to believe, to participate by giving him our allegiance. As you think about how God is calling you to be faithful to him today, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you. And today, would you know his peace?